let's be clear, our clients know their business far better than we ever will.
Sam Drawshak here. And today I'm excited to have Danny Nathan with us. Danny is the founder of Apollo 21, a unique company that sits at the intersection of an innovation consultancy and product design studio. The team at Apollo 21 helps clients ideate and build new products and the ventures that support them, and guides teams through the operational and cultural impacts of fostering an entrepreneurial spirit and growing a culture of innovation. Danny, thanks for coming in. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited for our chat here.
Yeah, absolutely. So Danny was telling me that he's been solving major process problems for his clients for a while. And here on Business Therapy, we love focusing on the challenges of a business process because, we know that that's one of the most vexing things that blocks you from scaling and growing and reaching your goals. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to you, Danny. Tell us kind of what you've been seeing from a process problem perspective and how you've got a perspective to solve that.
Yeah, definitely. So, it's interesting. We do have clients come to us often with process problems. And one of the most interesting things about that for me is that often they don't even really realize that what they have is a process problem. They come to us with like a symptomatic problem and go, I'll give you a perfect example. We worked with a financial services client who came to us, and literally their ask of us initially was, we're drowning in emails. Can you help? And what we found out as we began to dig in with them was that it really was a process problem because email was their process. And so, of course, you look at that, and this was a customer-facing company for whom most of their interactions with customers started with email. And so between customers emailing them every time they needed something, and then all of their internal processes being grounded in email, you can immediately see why somebody would be drowning in email. And so I'm happy to dig into it and answer any questions, but the long and short of it was we ended up outlining for them, excuse me, Sam. We ended up outlining for them and kind of digging in to understand what exactly they wanted their process to look like, and then to build a bespoke piece of technology for operational purposes that would guide all of their activities through the processes that they wanted to instill within their organization. And we've done that not just in the financial services space, but we've done that time and again. We've had clients come to us who have, discovered product market fit by cobbling together a bunch of different existing pieces of technology and sort of going, okay, we're going to worry about making it work better later. Let's just make it work first. And then often they will come to us when they hit that inflection point of, okay, we know it works. We're ready to sort of pour fuel on the fire and see where it goes and know that we're ready to scale. But we also know that based on the limitations of the cobbled together technology stack that we've built, the only way for us to achieve that growth is to throw more bodies at it or to rebuild our operational platform. And so, as I said, we've done that time and again where somebody comes to us with a problem like that is aligned to process and says, okay, either we know what we want our process to be, or we don't have any idea what we want our process to be, but we know we need it. Can you help? And so that's a lot of the work that we end up helping our clients with.
Yeah, and it's funny because, and I keep hearing the words you saying, like, we end up doing it, even if they want something. And the funny thing is, and this is where a lot of people have frustration, where they can't articulate that this is a process problem. And it sounds like you know that problem well in your consulting. And actually, before we even answer the question, can you just give maybe I know we just had it in your intro, but I'd love to hear a little bit more. What is the remit of your agency? Maybe let's just ground there for 30 seconds or so.
Yeah, that's probably a good starting point. So as you pointed out, I run a company called Apollo 21. I tell people that we sit roughly at the intersection of an innovation consultancy and a product design studio. But the way that often comes to life for us is helping companies evaluate and understand the problem spaces within their organization, be it process or otherwise, and then helping them envision opportunities for how to fix that, and then building the technology that then provides that solution. And so in some cases, that is us coming in to help understand what the processes are that exist today, where the problems within those processes lie, and then figuring out how to fix those problems and build technology to support that solution. Other times that might look like we want to build a new product so that we can tap into a new market or explore a new business model, things like that. But since we're talking about process here, I figured I'd kind of focus on the process side of our business. So that's a lot of what we do. We have actually built a piece of foundational technology that we own and operate that we call Mission Control, that provides the foundation for a lot of our process-oriented projects. And so I liken mission control to like a box of technology Legos. So you need role-based access. We've got a role-based access module. You need data ingest and analytics displays. We've got modules for data ingest and analytics. And so when a new client comes to us, once we understand the problem at hand, we take that box of technology Legos, we dump it on the floor, and we pick out the exact pieces that we want, and we build a spaceship or a fire engine or a new piece of technology using those pieces that hopefully solves their problem, and in the process helps them establish the processes that they need.
Got it. Yeah, and in doing that, so a lot of the work and the way you were describing it, it ends up becoming process work. So I want to start at a high level, like you're solving fundamental process problems, whatever the solution they're asking, whatever. How does that conversation usually go with your clients? How do you get them to the point quickly where they understand that you actually don't have an email problem, you have a process problem? What does that conversation look like for you?
That conversation really happens over kind of a number of conversations, but depending on how clear our client is on where their problem lies, sometimes that just starts with us interviewing people within the organization. So, hey, I've heard you're drowning in email. Why are you drowning in email? How many emails do you get a day? What are those emails about? How do you wish that somebody would, contact you for this particular part of the process if it weren't going to happen in email? Where does the process break down? Things like that. Other folks come to us and they know they have a process problem and they just want help solving it. That gets us, 2 steps down the road where we can go, okay, cool. We know we're dealing with a process problem. Ultimately, we still end up talking to a lot of people, understanding what the process is today, where it's breaking down, and helping them figure out how they want to streamline that process so that it works for their organization. And so really the long and short answer is it comes down to talking to a lot of people, understanding the pain points, and then working with them to envision what the solutions to those pain points are that fit within the way that they want to be operating. So some clients might want to get 1,000 emails a day because then they don't have to do anything other than check their email all the time. And that's great. And we can figure out how to integrate your email with mission control or whatever other piece of technology. We're not beholden to something that we've built, but there are ways to handle, I want to be dealing with things via email. I want to be able to text my clients to get this. I want you to build a software platform that I never have to leave and that will deal with all of the email and all of the text messaging on its own without my ever having to go into my email. And so really it comes down to learning and understanding where those opportunities and those desires lie that will help that particular team increase their efficiency and operate better so that they can increase their business footprint without needing to hire a ton more people, or so that they can go and hire a ton more people, but they can do so knowing that those people will be as efficient as they possibly can.
Right. So I love the perspective you're talking about, because a lot of what I heard in that was there's not a right or wrong answer a lot of the time, right? As long as the process is functioning correctly. And that's the part of creativity and solutions. And what people, I feel they're always in this mindset of tell me the right solution. But the answer to that question is always tell me your process first, because you need to know how many people, what they're doing, what's going on. And like you said in your answer, you have it's mostly going to land in the same place, which is I need to talk to your people. I need to do some sort of discovery. And in that, it seems like you're kind of articulating almost a standard process improvement framework that your agency's building.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, let's be clear. Every time we have a client that comes to us with a problem, the first thing that we start with is what usually looks like about a month of discovery. And so it is about 4 weeks of us interviewing internal stakeholders, interviewing customers potentially to understand how the process then overlaps with the customer experience. Because obviously, while we want to build a process that works internally, if that process that works internally breaks down when it comes to the customer engagement, then it's not a solution, it's building another problem. And so obviously, the last thing we want to do is solve one thing by creating another problem. And then, of course, we go through that process of understanding where those problem spots lie, what the process looks like today. And then from there, the remainder of the time during our discovery sort of branches off and might look a little bit different for each client. It might be that we then run a workshop or a design sprint or something of that sort where we can ideate together what the potential solutions are, prototype those solutions, and then get to a point where we can literally put something in front of internal stakeholders, customers, etc., and say to them, hey, before we go and spend the time to build the working version of this, like, click through our really ugly screens here and just tell us like if it feels right. And that allows us to very quickly discover where value is, what the ultimate solution might look like, and helps us limit how much we need to build out of the gate so that we're not proposing a year-long engagement of building a new process machine, but rather we can say, okay, what can we get done in the next month, 2 months, 3 months that will have material impact and add value to your organization immediately so that we can then understand, cool, we defined a process that looks like this. We decided to cut off that little sliver to start with. We're going to build that. We're going to get your feedback on it. We're going to figure out if it works. And then we're going to iterate on it from there so that if we do end up spending a year working together, it's not a year-long process of us working on something and then pulling back the curtain and going, ta-da, here it is. We really hope we got it right. Because I can guarantee you if that were the case, we wouldn't get it right. There's no question. You cannot spend a year building something and expect that at the end of the year it's going to be perfect. I'd rather spend a month building something and find out where it's not perfect so that we can then spend the next month fixing it.
Yeah. And I love that. And I love this whole piece. I mean, here at Business Therapy and Truval, we're a huge proponent of, discovery and then analysis. And then what you're saying is like, let's be realistic about iterations that are adding value, like the true agile methodology, right? Like we don't need this big bang thing. Where's the next step? But you got to know where you are to make the next step. And that's why that discovery piece is so important. So my question for you, especially, you seem very well versed in that cycle. If a client comes to you with a problem though, and your response is, let's do a month worth of discovery, how are you getting that through the front door? Because how do you translate to somebody that that's where you need to go and you need to make that investment? Because I find a lot of times this is where we struggle, right? Clients struggle because they want you to give them the solution. They want you to give them the magic bullet. A lot of people kind of are resistant to, hey, I don't want to look at what's going on right now. That's not what I'm asking you to do. Why take a month in discovery? That seems like a big ask. So I'm wondering how you navigate those conversations. How do you solve that problem?
I'll be honest that we don't run into that problem terribly often. Usually if somebody's coming to us, they're coming to us. To be frank, often they have tried to solve this problem a number of times. And so their frustration level is so high because they've tried 1, 2, 3, 4 times to come to a solution that when you come to them and say, okay, well, we can help you solve it, but it's going to take a month of, just understanding what the problem is. They're going, fine, I don't care what it takes. Get me to the end state of solving the problem. And the other side of that, Sam, and I'll be very blunt here, is if we go to talk to a client and a month of discovery work is a major problem in our workflow for them, they're not going to be a good fit for us. Full stop. Yeah, exactly. Bad client. And it's a red flag for us. And, look, a month might sound like a long time, but 4 weeks go really quickly. And when we're cramming in stakeholder interviews, customer interviews, a walkthrough of every piece of how the process flows today, then we're diagramming out how they want the process to work. Then we're working with them to map out what that solution is that aligns to that process. Like that doesn't happen in 2 days. That takes time. And so again, if somebody can't bother to take 4 weeks or whatever to work with us to get to a very, very clear understanding of the problem, the need, and the potential solution, we're not going to be successful in building that solution for them. And so at that point, I'd rather just go, hey, if you don't want to spend 4 weeks to help us get to the point where we can help you, good luck solving your problem.
I need that on a plaque. I should make that on a plaque with your name on it. If you don't have time for discovery, I don't have time for you. That's really that should be the message.
And I mean, it kind of is.
Yeah, I love it. I think to me that comment really encapsulates what I believe, at least personally, in this work, which is that if you can't take the time to understand your process, you're never going to get anywhere. You just can't. Like, how can you iterate from A to B if you don't know what A is? It's very difficult.
Right. Or if you come to me and say something's broken, like, I mean, imagine it like this. Your car starts making a weird noise. You're not a mechanic, so you take your car to a mechanic and you say to the mechanic, the car's making a weird noise. Do you then get angry when the mechanic says, okay, pop the hood? Like, no. I mean, you can't expect the mechanic to look at your Oldsmobile and go, oh yeah, that squeal's coming from the carburetor back there. Like, no, they're going to have to take a look. The discovery period for us is the equivalent of popping the hood.
Yeah, makes sense. So how do you help people through discovery? So I know, like you said, there's a month there. If you could share any insight, I'd love to hear, what does process discovery look like for you? Do you have your own process mapping language? How do you do process maps or process diagrams? Like, what does that phase look like? Because I know a lot of people are challenged with articulating their own process.
Right. And that's where that kind of stakeholder interview period comes in. So discovery for us is both a very defined, well, it is a very defined process that then loosely allows us to tackle that process however we might need to for that given project. And so, the first thing that we try to do is listen to the problem that's being articulated and take the time to ask the right questions to understand whether the problem that's being articulated is a symptomatic result of a deeper problem or is actually the problem that we need to go and solve. And, sometimes that can be answered in a 20-minute chat. And sometimes that literally requires, okay, well, I need to talk to your finance team. I need to talk to your fulfillment team. I need to talk to your communications team. I need to talk to your legal team, because depending on what your process is and what your company's goals are, those people all might be involved in that process. And so, part of it is just taking the time to do the work of,
Mhm.
okay, I need to talk to all of those people. And,
Yeah.
we take really careful notes about the things that we hear from those people. And we do it in, FigJam usually, but the point
Mhm.
here is we do it in a collaborative workspace where our clients have access to it. And that way, if we're walking into a client engagement, usually we'll have a primary point of contact on the client side who then helps us gain access into the deeper parts of the organization as needed. And so that person then, of course, wants to be kept up to date on what we're discovering and how things are going. And so having a communal place where we can collect all of the feedback that we're hearing and then start diagramming and sort of jotting out our thoughts and ideas and the kind of inklings of solutions help us visualize and then therefore share some sort of visualization with the client of what we are discovering along the way. And so by doing that, it helps us ground within our client organization what we're seeing, what we're finding, and where the problem points are, so that they can see it and go, oh, interesting. I never knew that legal had a problem with that part of the process because I don't deal with legal in that part of the process. And so it's almost a requirement to get everybody on the same page so that they all understand what the impact of their portion of the thing that they own is on the person after them, how they're affected by the person before them, etc. And then eventually what we end up with is okay, here's a list of the processes that are most problematic. And we usually try to document as many as we can. But then we work with our client to go through some sort of prioritization where we go, okay, in talking with people, we've got a list of 10 different processes or problems or whatever that we could tackle within your org. What are the three that are the most problematic for you? If
Mhm.
which of these three could we solve that would make your operations, 80% more efficient almost overnight, that would save you the most amount of money, that would streamline your customer offering more than any of the others. And we look for the things that are the most impactful opportunities across the identified issues, and then we start with those. And that comes back to that kind of iterative outlook. So, I never want to walk into a client and go, hey, we've identified 10 problems, we're going to walk away for the next year and solve them for you. Because then, you get 2 months in and somebody's going, hey, we're paying these guys how much every month and we haven't heard from them, or we haven't seen anything tangible, or where's the impact? I'd rather go in and go, okay, this one thing at the top of your list of 10, of which we've identified three, that's the one that we're going to start with because you've told us that it is the most impactful. And we're going to work with them to figure out how to solve that. And so, we go through stakeholder interviews. That might include some customer interviews and things like that, depending on what the process is and where it impacts customers. And then that's where it sort of leads into that design sprint opportunity or the workshopping opportunity to go, okay, this is the top thing that we've identified. Let's sit down as a group and let's be clear. Our clients know their business far better than we ever will. And we
Yeah.
don't claim to be an expert in the area that our client is in business for. We claim to be an expert in helping them find where the problem spots are and fix them. And so we do that alongside our clients because they know better than we do where the opportunities are and what the fixes should look like. We just help them sort of form, articulate, and then ultimately build whatever that thing is. And so that discovery process ends up being, talking to lots of people, ideating solutions, prototyping that solution. Sometimes that then leads into a very deep customer development process
Yeah.
where, we want to ensure that the process that we're envisioning aligns to customer needs, et cetera. and then we start building. And it sounds like a huge mess and like it takes forever, but like I said, it's usually contained within 4 weeks. And by the end of 4 weeks, we understand your business inside out, maybe not to the extent that your employees do, but certainly well enough to provide some opinions. And we understand where there's opportunities for technology to impact your business and your processes. And that's where we come in and shine is, okay, cool. We know that, we can remove email by building an internal platform that manages this process, that has a field where you enter client name, client receipt, client whatever, blah, 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 blah. Like we can build a piece of technology that is then designed around that process. And that's where we shine.
Okay. And you say that's where we shine, but it sounds, I'd be interested to know, because you just went through a lengthy discussion. I appreciate it. On the discovery side, how much of the problem is actually solved by you just having that structured and really disciplined and sharp viewpoint on how to do discovery, how to help them identify what they're looking at and get the right problem? Because it sounds like that's a big part of the consulting, right?
Yes. And you're right. I appreciate that, because you're probably right. I am shortchanging my team a little bit in not claiming that that's part of where the magic happens. The reason that I say that that's where we shine, or why I kind of lean towards the second part, is the upfront is where a lot of the understanding comes to bear, and it's often where we figure out what we think the solution should look like. The problem is that if we were to stop there, we have then performed the cardinal sin that most consulting companies are guilty of, which is, hey, we've identified the problem and we think we know how to fix it. Have fun. And we leave. And nobody likes that, because then you're going, cool, I just paid you. I spent a month working with you. Thank you. You told me what my problem was, but I kind of already knew that I had a problem, but you haven't fixed it. And so until you can get something tangible into the hands of your client that actually fixes the problem, they don't tend to see the magic as clearly. And so, yes, there's a ton of magic in the upfront of discovery and understanding and problem identification and solution articulation. But until you can get something tangible built into their hands that then actually has an impact and a value for their company, they're not really going to care that much.
Agreed. And everyone wants the solution ultimately, no matter how you get to it. I guess it's this.
Everyone wants the solution in their hands and working.
Right. Yes. And solving the problem that needed to be solved. Right. That's the issue. Well, and this is where the whole thing is, we've spent a lot of emphasis on that piece, on the discovery piece in this conversation, at least. But I guess it's back to, I think it was an old Einstein quote: if you had an hour, you got to spend 55 minutes figuring out what is the problem. And then if you do that correctly, the solution part is the part that should come easily if you've done the first 50 minutes correctly.
Right.
Well, let me come back to the point of where we started the episode, which was you've been doing a lot of process work. You've seen a lot of different client scenarios. If you were to say at this point, the big process problem you're seeing universally across your clients, or the ones that you feel like now you have a unique angle in solving, what might that be? How would you articulate that?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think that as companies build and grow, everybody goes through the company building life cycle of, I have an idea, I want to bring that to customers, I want to get paid for the solution that I have, whoever your client has in mind. And as they run into problems moving through that process, the knee-jerk reaction to it is, I have this problem. And if it's an identifiable kind of quick problem, they grab something that exists and plug it into that hole so that they can keep moving and keep growing and keep experimenting and keep learning. And that's awesome. That's exactly what they should do. Let me be completely clear. I'm not pooping on that part of, that solution process. But eventually, by the time you get to the point where you've done that for a year or 18 months, or in some cases 10 years or more, what you end up with is a pile of random products and services that you have sort of duct taped together to help solve your problems over time. And eventually they don't communicate those technologies that you've put together. For example, I bought this SaaS product to solve this problem and this SaaS product to solve that problem. You've got 50 different SaaS products running within your business that are costing you thousands of dollars every month that were never really designed to communicate with one another, and were never designed with the holistic view of your business needs in mind. They were designed to solve that one little problem. MailChimp was designed to solve mass emailing for newsletters and things, yada, yada, yada. And so to answer your question directly, the thing that we see happening over and over again is that moment of, I have a whole pile of crap that I have duct taped together that worked for a really long time, but now something has changed. Either one of those pieces of technology that I've been paying for is breaking down or doesn't do what I need it to do, or it hasn't kept up with the growth of my business, or that business has changed and our client is saying, hey, we really finally cracked the nut of product market fit, or we've discovered a new opportunity for how to engage with our customers and our internal tooling doesn't align to that. How do we sort of take a first principle look at what we're trying to accomplish here and pretend for a moment that we're going to rip away all of the pile of stuff that is duct taped together so that we can focus on building it right for us from the ground up? And generally that happens later in a company's life cycle. You know, if you look at the
Yeah.
way that a small startup gets started, for example, that's a prime example of, oh shit, I need something that does this. I need something that does this. I need something that does this. And I'm going to put it all together. And finally, you get to the point of, oh my God, I just can't log into another SaaS product.
Yeah.
Somebody help. There must be a better way. And it's
Yeah.
right there at that moment of there must be a better way that we often find people are knocking on the door going, we think there's a better way, but we can't figure it out. Can you help?
Yeah. I think you articulated it great. And it's really fascinating to hear you say that, because this universal problem, which is scaling through what I'm just going to call, from summarizing, like a patchwork tech stack, basically,
Mm-hmm.
it's a new problem, right? I mean, the ability
Yeah.
to like just have SaaS products and bolt them into your operating model, this is like a last decade kind of trend,
Yes.
right? So it's almost like
Yes.
this brand new scaling problem you're articulating from a process perspective, where you know it and you've seen it well, but it's people being nimble. But then it gets to a point where you just can't hold a tech stack like that together, and then you've got a critical scaling problem, is what you're saying, right? Which is like you have to
Yes.
almost like pull apart the whole thing and rebuild it, and that's beyond most people's capability.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And what's interesting, there's a couple of really interesting things that you just kind of called out in there, Sam. You know, one is the ability to, as you said, patchwork together a bunch of different SaaS products, for example, to solve problems along the way, is sort of a last decade, last 20 years kind of problem. And so in a weird way, what we're actually looking at is almost like a return to the days of yore when SaaS products were not a thing, and where everybody started out by going, "Oh my God, I have to go and build a CRM platform from scratch or whatever,"
Right.
and they were building their own internal technologies and things. The other thing that you just hit on that I think is really important to note in all of this is, at some point you hit that scaling problem of the patchwork can't scale with you, and what we've kind of come full circle to is eventually what you get to is it might actually be more efficient, both from a cost perspective and a time perspective, to then actually build something bespoke for your own needs,
Mhm.
as opposed to going out and continuing to bolt new things in to that patchwork to make it work for you over time. And so it's almost this weird, like, coming all the way back around moment of, oh, hey, congratulations, it's time to pull on the big boy pants. You've outgrown SaaS. Here, it's time to like figure out what your own thing might look like.
I love it. And we're like I can see it in my mind's eye. We're building like a life cycle here,
Yeah,
live on the
exactly.
discussion, right? But it's like you
Exactly.
say, it's funny because I haven't thought about it that way either. Where you're always going to get to a point where you're going to have to overcome the hurdle, if you really want to, like you said, put gas on the fire, of having a bespoke system that matches your needs, matches your preferences, matches your workflow. So even though you have all the SaaS offering configuration in a way that only matches a certain scale and experimental phase in a company's life cycle, like if I'm
Right.
hearing you right, it's like you're always going to have to get back to that massive Salesforce implementation, but it doesn't have to be that heavy vendor
Well,
anymore. It can be
you know,
your
it's
own
funny.
thing. You can make your own solution in a way.
Yes. Yeah, it's funny that you bring up Salesforce because it was just going through my head as you were talking
Yeah.
about it. Like, there are platforms out there that claim to be the end all and be all, and Salesforce is a great example of that. But Salesforce is now this gigantic, like, behemoth of a piece of
Yeah.
software that, I mean, realistically speaking, most companies, even most large companies, don't necessarily have somebody in house who could say, we're going to stand up Salesforce tomorrow, and would know exactly how to go and implement it so that it works perfectly for their needs. And so you're going to end up paying for somebody to come in and either customize Salesforce to the nth degree so that Salesforce looks and feels like it was built for your organization,
Right.
Or you just ignore Salesforce and spend the exact same time and money that you would on the Salesforce implementation building something that really is built bespoke for your business. Now, you get into the conversation of, well, Salesforce is a behemoth. I don't have to worry about Salesforce going belly up. I know that somebody will always be out there who I can hire to fix a Salesforce implementation. And yes, that is true. But that is also why part of our business model is helping our clients build out the teams necessary to support the things that we build for them so that they can carry it forward and take ownership. And so sometimes, not always or necessarily even often, what we find is that we will build a piece of process-oriented technology for our clients, and then we will deploy people from our team into their organization and literally transfer them over so that they can then maintain and continue the growth of that particular platform for that particular client.
That's fantastic. So it's building the process, building the enabling technology, and then making sure the whole thing can go into play. And I think that's a really smart way you're thinking about it, because if you don't have any of one of those pieces, the implementation usually fails. I mean, typically in these types of situations.
Right. And the problem is that it may not fail immediately. It may not fail next year, but 2 years down the road, somebody's going to go, oh, wow, this thing's been great for the last 2 years. It would really be nice if we could blank. And let's be clear, that's to be expected, because it's the same thought process that got us to the beginning of that project to begin with of, okay, this SaaS product that we've had plugged into our patchwork for a while has been working great, but now we need something that does this. And, one of the core operating principles that we happily share publicly at Apollo 21 is we expect our clients to outgrow us. And the thing that we are talking about right now is exactly why we operate under that principle. I don't want us to take on a client who then expects that we're going to build something for them and either charge them massive fees over time to keep it up and running or whatever the case may be. I would rather build something for them and help them internalize and operationalize that thing so that if they'd rather pay us to come back and help them fix, build, and extend that where necessary, we're more than happy to do it. But if they would rather say, hey guys, this is great, I think it's time for us to sort of fly the nest, we're good with that too. And not only are we good with it, we will help them get to the point where they can leave the nest on their own.
Yeah, that's great. And we could probably have a whole nother conversation about the consulting philosophy that I think is very healthy and what you're just describing. But I think for now, what I'd like to end with is, if anyone's been listening and is feeling that scaling problem through various SaaS solutions, I think that is a universal problem that Danny very well articulated. And there's no question that he's an expert on helping you get through that. So if you're feeling that pain and you need some business therapy, Danny, how can people reach you? What's your offer to the audience at this point?
Yeah, best place to find us is right there at apollo21.io. We're active on socials and all of that fun stuff as well. I'm on socials as blah, blah, blah / among many, just about everywhere. But start with our website. It has literally a dozen or so case studies on it of how we've done this for other clients, what the outcomes are, what the results are that they see from what we have built for them. We have white papers that help folks on teams understand how to sell these types of needs into internal stakeholders so that they have the opportunity to bring us into the conversation. And then, of course, we're sharing blog posts and articles and things like that all the time with further thoughts about, the world of technology and efficiency and all of that fun stuff. So please start on our website. And if you have any questions or if you're excited about what you're hearing, reach out to us. It's hello@apollo21.io. We're super easy to find. And if you're listening from New York City and you want to come to dinner with me, I run a monthly, usually founders dinner for earlier stage startups just to meet folks. But we're always open to people in interesting roles. There's not many rules around it. It's really just a great place to meet like-minded folks. So come and have an actual in-person dinner if you're in New York, and I would love to meet you.
Oh, that's incredible. We don't often get people offering to have dinner on the podcast, so I appreciate that.
Yep, I'm here.
Well, thank you so much for the fantastic conversation. For those of you listening, thanks for tuning in Business Therapy. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for having me. It's been a ton of fun.